Welcome back to the ThermoDiet podcast. I'm your host, Jayton Miller, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Tyler Woodward.
How are we doing today, Jayton?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So today, Jayton and I are just going to be doing a quick catch-up. It's been about a month and a half since we last recorded a ThermoDiet podcast, and we're just going to see where the talk takes us.
Sounds good.
So you've been traveling. You went home. I went to Mexico. What are your biggest tips for staying thermo over the holidays, but also while traveling?
Honestly, for me, it's pretty easy. My family is pretty accommodating. My mom's pretty thermo. I've been able to convert her over the years. So it's relatively easy whenever I go back to Texas and stay with her because she does pretty much exactly what I do, except her cooking's a lot better. So it's kind of nice going home.
Yeah. How does thermo conversion therapy work for you?
Well, at the time, it was just blasting her with as much information as I could. And then over time, it got condensed and a little bit more streamlined. And my mom's a smart woman, so it's not that hard to explain things to her.
Yeah. I was talking to my mom last night. She's helped me write a recommended daily value article about, the theme is non-toxic New Year and like getting rid of all the toxic things in your house and everything. And she was like, yeah, I'm trying to think all the things you've told me to throw out. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually not a bad thing to think about for inspiration. But yeah, I think, so yeah, you have an easy setup. Mine's pretty good too. My sister and dad are gluten-free. I'll typically splurge with my mom and eat some gluten because my mom she's the only one that eats gluten now. So like, she'll do a lot of sourdough stuff, but like we'll get pizza and she'll do like wheat flour tortillas, which, I definitely feel a little bloated after nowadays, but I feel like it's also just because the flour is not good flour.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. As far as driving down there, it's about like a 9.5 hour drive. Usually pack up on some good grass-fed beef jerky, lots of dried fruit, especially like dried pineapple, dried mango. Those are probably my favorite. And then outside of that, have a big old jug of orange juice and hit the road.
Is there? I got to get on the dried fruit grind.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't do that enough. It's so convenient too.
It really is. Yeah. The dried pineapples are really, that's one that I've tried more recently and it's pretty good.
You ever grill pineapple?
Yeah. I like grilled pineapple.
I never did it, but they do it a lot in Mexico and I really wanted to try it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just warm pineapple pretty much. Has a little bit of a charred taste to it if you burn it just a little. Does
it change the flavor at all or?
It can. Sometimes whenever you cook it a little bit more, it'll make it a little bit sweeter. Because I think it breaks down some of the starches to allow more sugar to be present. It's just like if you were to cook bananas or something, they might end up being a little sweeter. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the cool things. When I was in Mexico, the culture is just so different. And we went horseback riding. I was telling you about this. And the cowboys, the vaqueros, they made us his wife made us a homemade meal. And I was asking them, I was like, what do you guys fry this in? Because I speak a decent amount of Spanish. And I was asking them about the tortillas. And it was like, is this masa harina, which literally translates to corn flour. We call it masa harina as the specialized nixtamalized corn, where they basically bake the corn in lime, which opens up some of the nutrients. And they knew all of that. They're like, oh yeah, this is traditional masa harina. Like we put it through the lime and that, so you get more vitamins in it. You talk to the average person in the US, this is just a cowboy in a rural farm in San Miguel de Allende. And you feel like you talk to the average person in the US or even someone that cooks a decent amount, they're not going to know that unless they're in the thermo bioenergetic sphere.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that has a lot to do with the amount of industrialization that we have around our food system in America too. And the amount of education that we have around it that's just purely incorrect. So it makes sense why they wouldn't.
Yeah, I think I guess when you get closer to your food source, you really know more about like the preparation process. I was like listening to Jay and Mike last night and they were talking about how in Mexico, for some reason, Jay's in Mexico currently, I believe. And they grill the short ribs. They don't like slow cook it. He says it's terrible. And there's a reason like you slow cook these meats. There's a reason we prepare the foods the way they do. It's because the slow cook breaks down a lot of the collagen, which makes it a lot more tender. And it's funny, like I guess they just missed the ball on that one.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, different traditions have different ways of cooking things that are more favorable to the people who cook them. I would be interested to see if like there's spices and stuff that they use to grill them would be good in a slow cook fashion.
They do Mexican coffee. You ever had that?
With tequila?
What? That is not what I was thinking.
Oh.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, that's the only form of Mexican coffee that I've heard of is adding a shot of tequila to it.
maybe I have the wrong name, but it was like cinnamon in the coffee.
Oh, okay.
It was pretty good.
Nice.
It was interesting. It was a little spicy. I wonder if which kind of cinnamon they use, the Ceylon or the whatever the other one is. But I mean, not gonna ask that. The last thing I thought was interesting is they all so they used to fry in sourdough like pig or lard, and they all transitioned to. I was telling you this. They transitioned to corn oil because they were. I don't know why if they saw it themselves that the lard was causing them disease. They said like it was causing you to be sick, but they switched to the corn oil, which I don't think is any better, but I would be interested to see if it was like kind of government influence, like from the industry, or they kind of came to that conclusion themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's probably easier to get lard from the pigs that you raise, and there's probably a lot more money for the government in the corn that they produce. So yeah, there might be some money hidden somewhere in there that you don't know about.
Plus all that lard is probably mostly corn oil anyway. If they're just switched to corn oil,
Yeah.
which is not the best source of lard.
Yeah. No, definitely not. But it is what it is. I mean, we have our trouble in our food systems too. Most of the food that you see at the grocery store is PUFA laden. So
yeah, it was interesting. I was reading the Strong Sisters like egg guide, and I think they have like 30%. I'm probably misquoting this, but less omega-3s and PUFAs in their eggs. They have a lot more monounsaturated fat, so it doesn't get like any more saturated, but you get a lot less of the omega-3s, which is interesting. It's crazy how different like people, and that's what we were talking about, or I was conjecturing about how if you fed the chickens like Thermo chickens, would their amino acid profile be different, more metabolically friendly?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it also depends on the food source. Like you said that the amino acids that they intake is going to manipulate the amount of amino acids that they have in the muscle.
I think it's possible. Like there could be like, I'm just going to make an example that I don't know is true. Like maybe they just don't burn methionine so they just tend to store it for whatever reason. I mean, we probably have pretty similar like genetic things, and it's probably going to be pretty similar, but like they might tend to just store methionine or use more tryptophan in their muscles or something like that. But it's also definitely somewhat related to, as it is in us, like how much they eat, methionine, tryptophan, cysteine, glycine, all that stuff. I would conject that it would be interesting to like test it out.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people don't realize that chickens are a lot more carnivorous than you think. They're technically omnivores because they eat plants and insects and stuff like that. But if you put like certain plants next to a pile full of bugs, they're going to go for the bugs 100% of the time. So I think that is a realization that a lot of people need to have, is that you're not really supposed to feed chickens a bunch of seeds and all of this stuff. Their natural diet is more of a makeup of proteins and other animal carcasses.
You ever seen the Strong Sisters feeding them their chicken's liver?
Yeah.
They go crazy. Yeah. Dude, it was interesting. The guy down the street at Western Daughters said it's illegal to feed pigs meat in the US. Yeah. I mean, maybe like you could do it if you have your own pigs, but to sell it, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Whenever I raised pigs, we just fed them grain. So that was well before the Thermo days. So I'm not really familiar with the pig's diet. I haven't done much research in regards to that. I've mostly been focusing on chickens because that's one of the closer steps for me to get, for sure. Yeah,
I was told, we were talking about duck eggs. I was told duck eggs do not taste good.
I've had duck eggs myself, and they're not too bad. Yeah,
they're really big ones.
Yep, they're just a lot more rich.
Really,
compared to chicken yolks. Yeah.
Why would that taste worse?
I don't know. It's you could probably taste it in the fat in the meat as well. Like a lot of people don't really like duck in general because of the way that it tastes, because of the fats in it. So it could be the same reason as that.
You think it's similar to like it could be probably different, but grass-fed meat, how it's a little bit more gamey.
Yeah, their diet might have more omegas in it too. Like if they're eating a bunch of fish and stuff like that too, then they probably have a little bit more omegas that could be a little less enjoyable for people.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the poof a lot, and because if you eat the Wagyu beef, like they're just really obese, fed horrible grains. And that's typically what makes people think they're good. And I mean, it kind of does taste good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, but not the healthiest thing. So I would think maybe the duck would taste better because the omega-3s, or it could just be different. But
yeah, it could also just depend on whether or not the duck is wild versus if it's a conventional fed duck. I'd be curious if whoever tried that got the duck eggs at a grocery store, or if they got it, from a farmer or some other natural production.
Have you ever listened to Sam Harris?
A few times, yeah. I'm not
the White Oak Pastures guy. Oh no, not the atheist dude.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe Will Harris.
I've listened to Sam Harris a couple times, and I'm not a fan of his nihilistic perspective. Or he's more nihilistic in my perspective than most people that I enjoy listening to.
Yeah, he's interesting. But Will Harris is the owner. I think his name is Will Harris. It might be Sam Harris. I think it's Sam Harris, honestly. The owner of White Oak Pastures.
Okay.
Rogan had him on. And dude, it was crazy. He's like one of the first like regenerative agriculture, like people that really made it popular. And it's really crazy, all the things he was saying. For him to grow a pound of chicken, like you go and see a pound of chicken in the store for like $2. He's like, it cost them $1.20 to grow a pound of chicken. It cost me $4, which is crazy how the difference in like a quality chicken. He said a chicken has just made the way chickens are is just very friendly to the industrialization process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're very small animals and they're easy to corral and put into places, and they grow very quickly. So that's another benefit is, cattle's a lot more expensive. It takes a lot longer for them to develop and grow to a point to where you can actually make money off of selling them based on their weight. But chickens grow super quick. So, you could have potentially 3 different herds in a year. I could be completely off for this too from a time frame. So all the farmers out there, please don't take this as a quote directly from me. It's kind of like a rough guess. But you could have like 2 to 3 herds a year of chickens versus like, you could get 1 cow slaughtered in a year and then, potentially have another one born and growing for the next year.
Do you have to slaughter every animal when it's like pretty young? So I know chickens, it's like 6 months, is it?
I'm not really sure on that stuff. I still have a lot of research to do before I decide to actually get chickens and grow them myself. But yeah, I'm not really sure.
I know Brent was telling me he tried to eat some egg chickens, and I don't know if he told you this, but he said, he brought them to the butcher. He's like, "You're going to eat these?" The butcher was like, "You're going to eat these?" And he was like, "Yeah, like, why wouldn't I? It's chicken." And he's like, "Okay." He butchered them, gave them to Brenton. And Brenton was like, now I understand why he gave me that look. He's like, they were the worst thing ever. Like he said, he couldn't even get it down. I think he had to make it into like a broth or something.
Interesting.
I don't know. It's because like the hormones they gave the chickens to lay eggs continuously. I guess they don't really need hormones. They just need to not be pregnant. But I think it's just the age, and that might be why they kill cattle at like 2 years old too, generally. Or beef.
Yeah. The older the animals get, the more tough that the meat is going to get. So it definitely could be that for sure. I know that like wild pigs, for instance, in Texas, like the younger that you shoot them, the more favorable they are to eat. The older ones, you just want to dispose of them really because the game taste really, it like has more time to marinate in the meat, and it's a lot harder to not taste that in the meat if it's a really old pig.
You don't want the gamey taste, really?
No, it's kind of gross.
In pigs or?
Yeah, in pigs. Like if you have an old wild boar, you can smell that thing from half a mile away. Like they stink bad. Really? And that stench is in the meat. Like you can taste it.
Oof. That is gross. Have you ever had like a young wild boar?
Yep.
Is that really good? Yeah,
it's not bad. I mean, it tastes like regular pork chop, really. Yeah.
It's not very different from...
It has a little bit of a gamey taste, but if you cook it right, it's not bad.
Yeah, he was also saying that cows... So he was talking about at some point during the pandemic, they had to just euthanize like hundreds of thousands of chickens. I forget what the reason was. I think
Avian flu.
It was the avian flu.
I think so. Yeah, that was one of the reasons that eggs were so expensive this past year. They went up by like $1 or $2 per dozen because of the avian flu. They were having to kill like flocks of chickens at a time, because if one of your chickens has the flu, you have to kill the entire herd according to the FDA. So
really,
yeah, because they've been exposed to it, so they could potentially have it. So you have to get rid of the entire flock.
They can't just like wait it out.
That's
no, crazy. But he was saying that he was. I forget. It may have been that. I forget why. You think that's also why eggs are so expensive right now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was reading in the Morning Brew this morning that egg prices are slowly starting to drop back down, but that was one of the main reasons, because they had to kill a large percentage of the population of chickens.
It's crazy. But he was saying about cattle that if he kills his bulls or his cattle around 2 years, and he said if he didn't kill them, they would probably live to like around 18, 20 years. That's how it's like the lifespan. But if you took the grain-fed, the industrialized cattle, and they get killed around 18 months, he said he doesn't think they would live another year if you just let them live, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you kept feeding them the same way and treating them the same way, I don't really see them living that much longer after that either.
Yeah. It's wild. Like people think they're just eating meat and all meat's the same, but you're really eating like, I made the analogy once, like the Peter Griffin versus the Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like you're eating sick, obese cows that, you can't eat sick chickens, but we eat bad meat pretty much all the time.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd want to eat Arnold Schwarzenegger meat either. That's probably got some weird stuff in it as well.
Yeah, probably. You'd probably bulk up real quick, but
yeah.
It was actually the funniest thing that he said they use every part of the cattle. And so he brought Rogan at the end of the episode, like the ball sack. Leather balls. Have you ever heard of this before?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who will attach a ball sack to the back of their trucks in Texas.
Well, no, not the literal. I don't think it was the literal. It was literally like he made it into a bag, and maybe it was just like the ball sacks without the balls. Is that?
Yeah, I have a kangaroo pouch in my car that's like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Rogan was like, "What the fuck do I do with this?" He put 3 golf balls in there. It was pretty funny, but yeah. Regenerative agriculture is definitely something I would like to look into more. Brenton's really into it. I think it's so fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, permaculture in general is just such a fascinating realm, and the idea of being able to build resiliency into your food sources that you grow yourself is awesome. And the ability to have a place where everything works together and is synergistic, like, the chickens fertilize your crops, and then your crops feed the chickens, and you have a water source somewhere on there that is accessible to everything. I mean, it's really cool. And the ability to also build back land that has been decimated by somebody is a really cool practice, and it's really cool to see.
How would you define permaculture?
Permaculture is it's permanent agriculture. So it's basically the idea of building ultimate self-sufficiency into a system that allows you to have a self-sustaining system. Like a lot of people will build like food forests. So they'll build plants in a certain way in the given area that they have, and they'll over time it'll just continue to add more things into it that benefit each other and also benefit you. That's a very broken definition of it. But yeah, the idea is just having a permanent agriculture system.
Yeah, he was talking about that, something similar to that in the regenerative system, where it's like the cows, and he's talking about they went from 0.5% organic matter in the soil to like 5%, which is like insane. There's a video of looking at his neighbor's runoff, the water from this big storm, compared to his runoff is just clear, pure water, while the neighbor's just all of his topsoil is just gone because of all this organic matter. They built up all the microbes. And you were saying the cows, they poop, and that really helps the microbes get in the soil. And I think the chicken poop does it as well. And you might be able to explain it better, but basically the cows help keep the chickens, help keep the pork, and they help fertilize the plants. which it was just like this one process where they all help each other in this weird way.
Definitely. Yeah. And also with permaculture too, you don't use any kind of pesticides or harmful chemicals like that. For instance, you would look at the entire system and figure out what is missing that is allowing some kind of pest to be present. Like if you have a bunch of slugs in your garden, you don't have enough ducks to be eating the slugs. So you need to get some ducks in your garden to eliminate the slug problem. So looking at it from a holistic perspective and seeing like, what can you add to this system that is going to counterbalance the problem area, is kind of the idea. Bill Mollison is the father of permaculture. I'd really recommend checking out some of his work as well as his protege, Jeff Lawton, and that's spelled GEOFFLAWTON.
One of those guys.
Yeah. Well, he's Australian, so
Is that how they do it over there?
But yeah, I would check out their work, and there's all kinds of information all over YouTube about this stuff as well.
Yeah. So sometimes I just want to go out and make it a farm and just disappear.
Yep. I'm working on it.
I'll see you. Yeah, I think. Oh, so you want to talk briefly about just losing the holiday weight?
Sure, let's do it.
So first of all, probably the best strategy is not to put the holiday weight on, but it's too late for that, as you can see. Gain some weight over the holidays. But I mean, if we're talking about, I think you can use this, and I think it's a great time to use this as a time to grow. And I do mean that both physically and like metaphorically. Like go to the gym, like start really hammering the gym and turn some of that weight you gained into muscle. And also, I mean, we're in a higher body fat relatively, and you don't want to be too fat. You're in a very surplus state. You typically, or what would you call it? A thriving state.
An abundant state.
Yes, that's the word. And you are probably in a great position to go put on some tissue and use that to your advantage. Don't always just be like, oh, I need to lose this fat. We got 6 months till summer. So any advice you'd add?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely got a little layer going on because I injured my knee. So I haven't been able to do as much jiu-jitsu, unfortunately, which means my cardiovascular activity has gone down quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
Resulting in a little bit of weight gain, but it's not significant, and it's definitely something that I know will come off pretty easily once I resume my previous activities. It's just a matter of waiting on it. I also think that, having a little bit of weight on you during the cold season is never a bad thing. It helps keep you a little extra warm. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of cutting weight in general. So, in my opinion, just keep it on and do more.
Yeah. I think there's definitely something to be said about, the skinny people. You see like my grandma, my mom are just really skinny and they're cold all the time. And that's definitely a thyroid issue too, at some point, in my opinion. I think it probably runs in the family, but like you need to have some meat on you, and that could be muscle too. But I think bodybuilders, when they get really lean, are always freezing too. They'll be like 80 degrees. That's why they all live in Miami. Phil Heath is the only bodybuilder ever to live in a cold climate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it has to do with just your thyroid activity goes down tremendously whenever you get below a certain body fat percentage. So, you start getting too lean, you're definitely going to start freezing your butt off. But also, your protective layer that conserves heat is also being eliminated too. So you have more heat escaping your body, or it's escaping your body a lot more easily than it has previously. So, body temperature regulation is something that is easily manipulated for sure whenever it comes to losing or gaining weight.
I also think it's, I could be wrong about this, but it's a little bit underrated of an aspect that every time you gain weight, you're putting on, if you're doing it in a thermo way, hopefully you're putting on mostly saturated fat. And, one of the goals of thermo is to, kind of desaturate or saturate your fat stores and get rid of the PUFAs. So when you lose weight, you typically burn more PUFAs, which is pretty stressful on the body. But, if you can do it gradually and do it in a good way and more so detoxify them, hopefully you're putting on those good fats that will, increase your metabolic rate in the long run.
Definitely, for sure.
And also make sure, get your vitamin D supplementation in if you're not getting any sunlight. And make sure, even though it's cold in a lot of places, I know we have listeners in Australia as well, but get outside, get your steps in. Like, go to the gym, whatever you need to do to don't just, use the winter to stay inside and do nothing unless you have a bum knee. But even then, Jane's going for walks and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm walking. I'm still doing resistance training for the other areas of my body and doing a little bit of, rehabilitation work for the knee and stuff. So I'm definitely not completely inactive, just not as active as I was before. So I definitely don't get out of the habit of keeping your body moving, because it's a lot harder to start something back up and get back into it than it is just to, maybe very sparingly continue something over a long amount of time.
Yeah. And even they've shown that with muscle too, that you just put it back on so much more readily. So much harder to gain muscle than it is to regain muscle. And I think that's because like the nuclei that are there in the mitochondria that just don't really go away. But cool. You got anything else?
No, not really. I mean, just, an object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest will stay at rest. So stay active and don't get lazy.
There we go. Newton's first law.
I have no idea.
It's
one of those over there.
I think it's Newton's first law. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until next time, be good.
Have a good one.